Okay. All right. Welcome to our March Planning Commission meeting. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. That will be by Scott, and then we'll have a roll call by Haley.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty. Haley.
Commissioner Shelley Bodley. Commissioner Scott Justinson.
Present.
Commissioner Heidi Murdoch, absent. Excused. Commissioner Justin Wright.
Here.
Chairman Kevin Polson.
Here.
Councilmember Mark Cottrell.
Here. All righty, thank you. So we'll start with our public comment. Now, today we do have a public hearing on a few issues. This initial public commentary period is about anything that's not on our agenda that later is going to be part of the public hearing. So if you have any comments, please limit it to 3 minutes. And if you think you're a duplicate of someone else's comment, maybe give them a whoop or something rather than reiterating. And we will note the whoop in favor. So if anyone has a public comment, we'll allow you to join us here at the lectern. Looks like we're not elbowing past each other to get to the lectern, so we'll go ahead and move forward on that. Any presentation from staff?
Before your public hearing for the rezone, presentation of what the rezone is for.
Okay.
And then after public hearing, so maybe we'll answer questions.
Sure.
During his presentation, and then open up into the public hearing for the rezone.
And remind me, his is that first issue, right? The 1149 South Mountain Road?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So what we'll do, we'll first do our review and approval of our commission meeting minutes from February. Take care of that, and then I can turn over time to our guest speaker here. So going on to the review and approve, I looked through them. I didn't have any issues. I didn't make any changes. I don't know if Scott or Justin, you guys had anything else?
No changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I get a motion to approve as is?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 24th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you. And then Scott, you're my only second.
I'll
Okay,
second.
perfect. We got our second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those are approved. Thank you. And then was it Mr. Baird? Please, time is yours.
Scott Baird, so we're the homeowners at 1149 South Mountain Road, and this is kind of what we've been working on with the HOA in the spring and such. So we'll just kind of go through the slide presentation and track through just so there's kind of context. So this first slide, as you go through here, if you could scroll down to that next slide, yeah, that's our property. So we're 2 acres down the hollow. This is kind of across the street, Hidden Springs, down tucked back in behind there. Us and our neighbors immediately to the kind of southwest are both zoned agricultural right now. So we've got some sheep, goats, and chickens and things down there. So as you scroll down, there's 2 other parcels that you can see here. These are both owned by the Hidden Springs Homeowners Association. As you keep scrolling down, one of the issues that we have struggled with since we've been in our homes, it's been 8+ years now, is there's quite a bit of fire risk for us. There's some pretty tall Phragmites down there. Phragmites is an invasive species in the state. There's a lot of Russian olive as well, and they're also considered an invasive species in the state. For us, we've had some kids wander through. I know there's another issue with the Hidden Springs HOA, kids lighting fires and things. And it's a pretty big concern for us. There's no barrier between us and this field. So I was talking to a member of the Hidden Springs HOA board once, and he was mentioning issues that they were having with kids and things as well. And this kind of came up and said, well, we've got an issue as well, let's address it. And so really this all stems from just trying to find a way to address this in a way that would make sense for us and for the HOA. Yeah, as you can see here, if you look on the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, they identified this area down there as high fire risk. That Phragmites dries out pretty quickly, and 4th of July or in the winter even. go up and plunge into the fireworks. So trying to address that issue as well. If you scroll down again, the next slide. So this is the hillside right off of Hidden Springs Parkway. That is the HOA's area that they could potentially access this, these two lower parcels. As you can see from that top picture, it's pretty steep. As we talked with the HOA board, they felt like it would be cost prohibitive to try to install a road there to maintain this area down in the hollow, and that they have limited access. So as we continue to scroll down, we've been coordinating with Hidden Springs HOA to either get an easement or acquire it, some way just to control and mitigate and take care of that fire risk. When we first started conversations, it was about just having access so we could mow down, chop down, get rid of that fire risk. Recognizing that we're zoned agricultural, it's really easy for us to keep our pasture in check with our sheep and goats. And we thought it would be fantastic if this was zone ag, we could fence and let our sheep and goats rotate them through there to keep it kind of mowed down, to keep that risk at the lowest expense for us. So this is our property right now. This is our field. In fact, in the back, you can see in the very back, those tall reeds, that's the Phragmites. That comes right up next to our property edge. And, you know, it's about 12, 15 feet tall. So this is just an example of where you can see when you've got some animals in there, what it looks like, a lot better maintained than without. This is also then that piece on the corner of Main Street and Mountain Road, thank you. Anderson property, they fenced that off, it's zoned agricultural as well. I mean, this is generally the idea of what we're looking for, is just to beautify that area and get rid of the fire risk. So that's kind of the nutshell of our presentation. We talked to the HOA a lot. I know the HOA board was in favor of this. I know that they have since taken this to their HOA membership. They've had some meetings there and shared this proposal. There's some questions I think that have come out of that, members of that Hidden Springs Homeowners Association. And would love to answer any questions. Again, we're not set on any path, just looking for a solution to address the fire risk in what we thought was a way that was pretty simple for everybody and pretty cheap for the most part. So as you go down, we see again, proposed solution, rezone this area to ag. Part of our rationale for that as well, if we were to get an easement or acquire that land, was to try to provide reassurance to neighbors as well that nothing is going to get built down there. This is meant to, I mean, right now it's zoned residential. You couldn't build anything down there anyway because of the wetlands that are down there. But this was our way to try to simplify, like, it's just going to be open space, that's our goal. Animals just to help keep it mowed down. And obviously benefits reducing the fire risk, reducing the HOA liability, protect our home and some of the adjacent neighbors' homes as well. That's kind of the idea. Our recommendation would be to move forward with the rezone to ag, so that we could then continue conversations with the HOA for either an easement or an acquisition of that. Again, mostly just as a way to keep it maintained cheaply. That's kind of our goal. That's where we're at with this presentation. I'm anxious to hear from neighbors and things and what we can do to try to find a solution. That's what I got. Happy to answer any questions. I don't know what I should sit down there for the public comment.
Thank you. I think what we'll do is we'll probably open the hearing, and then I think we'll allow some folks who might want to ask some questions, and then we'll maybe bring you back after to maybe respond, answer, help out with that. So I think I always get rusty on this one. I get a motion to open and to close, just to close. Okay, we're open, folks. We're open. So yeah. Yep. Perfect. Yeah, so the two public hearings will kind of go step by step. So this first one, we will open up for anyone who has any comments, questions about this rezone request. And again, if you can keep your comments to 3 minutes, that'd be great.
I have some questions. Go ahead, Paul.
And actually, sorry, that'll help Haley with recording it for our record and for the people online. Also, if you could state your name and your address, that's kind of the practice we've done.
Paul Chase, 160 Paul. Oh, we need you.
That would be great. I appreciate your coming up and talking.
1661 Hidden Springs Parkway. We've lived there since 2007. First owners. The one thing I wanted to clarify was if you're interested in one parcel or two parcels, there's parcel E, and then there's parcel, I'm not sure what it is, but the one that's east of that. Are you interested in?
Do you want me to respond to this, Mike, as well? Yeah, so, oh, thanks. So we're interested in anything that's on that kind of west side of Hidden Springs Parkway, nothing on the east side of Hidden Springs Parkway.
Yeah.
There is one unique part of that, those two parcels, one is about 1.5 acres and one is 0.8 acres. The 1.5 acre piece, there's no question about us potentially acquiring an easement. The smaller parcel, that 0.8 acres, has a stormwater retention basin on it. And in the general plan or the master plan for the HOA, it mentions that HOA needs to maintain or keep ownership of that for the maintenance of the stormwater basin, et cetera. So we're happy to do whatever's easiest. That can be changed. We just need to change that plan for the HOA. It can be done. Whether or not it's worth it to be done, we don't know. So that's what we kind of try to figure out with the HOA. But only stuff to the west of that Hidden Springs Park.
Okay. And I guess I wanted to get clarified as to the size of the parcel or parcels, because what I read here in the way of a map, it looks like it's like 1.68 acres, and but for your goats, it would be quite a bit more than that, because it's given on a level basis. I don't know if you knew that or not, but when you look, I know you're interested in the entire parcel. It would be more than 1.68 acres.
Sure.
It would be probably closer to 2 or over 2. So in other words, there would be more land for them to graze on than what's considered the level part.
Right. So yeah, there's those two parcels there. And I don't know if you want to scroll back to that slide that shows two parcels, maybe. I think both of those total 2.48 acres, and that's again everything to the west. For sure, we'd love to have all of it rezoned to ag. We'd love to acquire the one that's easy to acquire. Happy to fence off the other one so that goats can keep that maintained and mowed down as well. That stormwater area, right now, there's trees and things that have all grown up in there, but yeah, I mean, that would be our intent, would be to fence any of that open area down there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was my only question.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate your time. Any other comments, please, sir?
My name's Andy Bush, I'm at 1693 Hidden Springs Parkway. It's important that Paul goes first because he was the first guy I met in the neighborhood. He came and shoveled me out of our first snowstorm when we moved here, and we used to get snow.
He may have to shovel you out again, depending on how this goes, so.
I didn't know anything about this. I'm hearing a lot of misinformation, so I wanted to come down. I don't know you. I don't have anything against you, what you're doing. It's private property, so it should be able to exchange really in the marketplace. I guess a couple of things. One of them is I did not know that this was zoned by law. I thought everything down there was wetlands, but I knew people to notice that. So if it's R12, I guess I'm not really that thrilled about that. But if it is Hidden Springs property and it is zoned R12, I'm not sure why we were proceeding with the rezoning now when this issue of who owns it is, I mean, in work. I mean, I was out of town and didn't get to attend the HOA meeting, but I don't understand what the rush is to proceed. I'm all for the wildfire mitigation. We just spent a lot of money to have our back lot cleared out. So I mean, I understand the benefits of that, but is there a reason why we're talking about rezoning it when there hasn't been a sale? I don't even, it's my understanding that HOA has not even come up with a price yet. I just don't know where we're at.
Sure. Please. Yeah.
We'll get everybody in
Yeah.
here. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that comment. So it doesn't matter who owns the property underneath. It doesn't matter. We don't even need to discuss tonight who owns the property to do a rezone. Mr. Baird has just requested to rezone the property to an agriculture designation. That does nothing to change the underlying ownership. All of those discussions about who, we know who owns it. It's the it's the HOA, the Hidden Springs HOA. They're clearly the owner. But all of the discussions about what you want to sell or what you want to lease or what you want to give or not give, all of that can happen. That doesn't make a bit of difference as far as the zoning is concerned. So this zoning can move forward and all of those discussions can still happen.
Okay.
So it's not imperative that any of that discussion happens now.
And remind me,
I feel that it does, and here's the reason why, Jeff. If this guy, the district mayor, doesn't own the property, why are we rezoning for his purposes when we haven't gone through the process yet? Which in the homeowners association, I don't think it's clear. Again, I wasn't thinking, but I got a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm only doing it at the request of the homeowners association.
Okay.
The board, so when we talked about this initial issue with the fragmites and clearing it out down there, our intent was, just get it cleared out. It's a lot to maintain that, and that fragmites grows back really quickly. So we were just trying to think creatively. As it does in our yard, the animals keep it mowed down really well, keep that fragmites from coming
No, I
back.
mean, the place on Main Street.
Yeah, you see,
I
yeah.
can see the difference between where the animals are and they aren't.
So, and for us, I don't know that we have a desire to own it, just to make, because there's nothing that can be done with it. To own it if it's not zoned agricultural, because to maintain that continually would be a lot of work. And so for us, our thinking was, well, if it's zoned agriculture, yeah, we'd be interested in it. If it's not, then HOA, put whatever costs in to build a road and maintain it. But so we were just looking at a cheap way. And I think the other point was the zoning for us made us more comfortable than how it's currently zoned as residential. You can't build anything down there because of the wetlands, as you noted, but just having it zoned residential makes me nervous. And zoned agriculture.
Honestly, it makes me nervous too, because I didn't know it. I thought.
Yeah, it should be just open space. So those are, if that makes sense, some of the orders. So
Look, I don't know what the, thanks.
yeah,
I don't know what happens to the value of property if it's zoned R12 to agriculture. Let's just say there's going to be a difference. But I don't know why we would prejudice potentially, I don't know if this is the case, the Hidden Springs HOA's position when it's still Hidden Springs HOA's property. And so I guess I'm just urging caution. I'm not saying no. I would much rather have his goats on it than R12. I'll tell you right now, I'd rather have that any day of the week, but I just don't think it's ready. I think I wanted to say, I think that's probably about, yeah, that's probably it. I think I've read it. So thanks a lot, guys.
thank you for your thoughts. And one, remind me, I thought that the board had filled out the request. So that's one thing to note as well.
yeah. So thank you for the clarification. It is the board that submitted this request for the rezone. They just, I've told them I'm happy to do whatever to help to facilitate this. So I paid whatever attorney's fees, I paid the application fee, just trying to help in whatever we can, because I think we probably benefit more than anybody in getting rid of that fire risk. I think those other homes, on top of the wall, I don't know that the fire's gonna jump that 30-foot wall, but maybe I don't know, you could probably come up there to you as well. So we're just trying to facilitate it.
Sure.
And then, so they wrote a letter as well saying, yeah, let Scott speak to this on our behalf, just to save them time.
Sure. But that was it's a valid concern, certainly that the landowner has to be the one to submit that petition and request.
And to your point, I mean, I said there was a lot of misinformation, and I didn't know that the Hidden Springs, the HOA, was the
Sure.
one that submitted the rezoning
Yeah.
request. Although I don't think the HOA meeting went exactly as planned in terms of unanimity of opinion.
Sure.
On what to do with the property.
Right.
So I guess I fall back on my initial position. I'm not sure why we're doing this.
Sure.
At this point, I think I would much rather have his goats there than our goats.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now.
Sure. No, and I appreciate your comments. That's very helpful. So thank you, Andy. Any other comments, please, sir?
Hi,
Hi there.
I'm Jed Iverson. I live adjacent to this property.
Okay.
It's
And
my house
sorry
along
for
the driveway,
orientation if you,
right there.
Okay, perfect.
So that's my long driveway. It's adjacent. I made some notes and then I forgot my glasses, so I don't
Here, you
know.
wanna borrow?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Respectfully, I am in opposition to rezone this property. And my main concern is that slope. This is sensitive lands. So public safety, environmental concerns, that property, including the hillside right next to my driveway, has been designated by the city. It's on the sensitive lands map as moderate and high risk landscape. Rezoning this agricultural creates an issue for me and anybody that lives on top of that house. No homes are going to be built there, but what will be built is a fence. And I think people have used that property down the hill here as a good example. I use that as a bad example. You see what goats do to land. They eat it all. If they're left to just freely and permanently roam on the land, they will eat the roots. They damage that land down the hill to the point where it's going to take a long time to recover. So the problem with that, it's the roots, it's the weeds, it's the grasses, it's the trees. That's what stabilizes that slope. That's what keeps my house standing on top of the hill and the other houses up there. So, goats are the worst. Sheep also affected. The other thing that they do is their hooves compact the soil. And when they compact soil, again, using that property as an example, you can see that. It makes it so the soil doesn't absorb water. It increases the runoff. And when it's a property like that, it's not a big deal. But on this property, which is sensitive and it's greater than 30 degrees slope, that significantly increases the risk of hillside failure and landslide. So that's my primary concern. I also have an issue and concerns about the entitlements to the Hidden Springs subdivision, zoning and also entitlements. When the property was approved, it was done so as a PUD, and there was a bonus given for certain things, like the clubhouse, the swimming pool, the landscape areas. There was also a 10% bonus granted to the developer for designating that area as common open space. It's a wildlife corridor. You can see that extends all, maybe not in this picture, a wildlife corridor extends all the way down from Mountain Road to the mountain. That's where the deer live and the birds. And I will. So just reading from back when this was approved, that this is a PRUD was given a bonus density of 10% for developments which are designed to protect or preserve sensitive environmental areas such as existing trees, floodplains, riverways, wetlands, or other natural features. These areas must be open to the general public to qualify. So, because of these reasons, public safety, environmental concerns, and also entitlement and zoning issues, for those reasons I'm opposed to the rezoning.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that, Jed. Any other comments, please, sir?
All right, Bruce Valdez, 1374, directly across the map from where I'm at. I'm on the corner, basically right there at the center of both of these parcels. As a president of an HOA up in the Uinta Mountain Range, I fully understand the whole rezoning and trying to understand the process for everybody here. My concern, again, is the waterway and wildlife protection of this whole thing. Again, I was unaware of the whole R12 rating of the property land itself. Was told when I bought my land that it was all wetlands that could never be touched. I am, yes, for sure, wanting to protect against wildfires. I have an active sprinkler system in my backyard to protect for fire, for that reason. But
But I think there's other ways that we can vet this out in terms of protecting that land and keeping it, open to the public. I've talked to some people here already that the kids already go through that gully way and come up my back driveway that is on the back end of my property. So if there is a discussion of like, how can we get equipment and a road in there, I am more than open to trying to see if we can go that direction. That's what it takes. If it involves even labor part of mine of, let's go in there and clean this thing out, let's do that. But again, I worry about the same thing. Farm animals and everything tearing up the land. We lose the wildlife that is the existing reason why I purchased that property. Coming from the UNS, I am all about wanting to have my wildlife around me. This gave me that opportunity to be central in the city, but still have wildlife. And if we go in there and clear cut it all out, and it becomes just this grassy wetland that is covered in farm life, and I worry about the smells, and yes, it's fine. But the tractor life, and I don't think he would do it. Scott goes in there and starts putting up barns and structures and all kinds of stuff to maintain all this equipment. We've just then lost all of that property for our use and that the beauty that is that gully. So I vote to protect that land. I vote to work with you, Scott, if there's anything that I can help along the way. But I would vote the board to move to rezone this as something that could never be touched. That is a wetland-based thing that protects it as a community resource and not just as a parcel of land that can be utilized for the homeowners that are surrounding.
Thank you. Oh, you're for? This is your whoop? Oh, your whoop is in favor of Scott, okay. Okay, thank you. I have to assess the whoop properly, so whoop in favor of Chris. Okay, thank you, I have noticed that. What was your name? Yuhon? Perfect. Okay. Anyone else? Alrighty. I'll take a motion to close the public hearing part, and then we can discuss and maybe you have any questions or anything, but can I get a motion to close the public hearing part of this discussion?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on this discussion about rezoning 1149 South Mountain Road parcels behind it.
Scott?
And I'll second that motion.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, yeah, I thought everyone, first of all, thanks for your engagement, and thanks, everyone was very respectful of each other. I love that. That was great. We see that most of the time, but don't always see that. So it's always great when you guys, you can tell you're good neighbors. You have some different viewpoints. So thank you for being good neighbors in a city of good neighbors. You know, this was helpful for me to get some different context. You know, we've talked about it the past couple meetings about the concerns about the fire, and you know, our next public hearing tonight is about the wild urban interface laws coming down from the state about protecting against wildfires. So we're certainly right now very sensitive to the ideas of wildfires. You know, you guys presented some interesting things to think about, concerns about, you know, there was concern about the landscaping and slopes and that sort of thing, whether that would destabilize the slope. Concerns about you know, the wildlife and access, and the gentleman that talked about how this was initially tied to bonuses relating to being open to the general public and being common open space. So some interesting thoughts that, you know, I hadn't thought about before. What are you guys thinking right now?
Yeah, I had similar. I guess I'd have two questions, and I don't know, Jeff, if you're the right person, but on the bonus density, does that at this point? I assume it doesn't affect a decision, but
it definitely does affect that property down there, any part of that property was used as a bonus density. And I've done just some initial looking into that, and be happy to, further that effort. But, just based on the research that I was able to find, and, under when this was all approved and things of that nature, is that the density, the property that was set aside specifically in the density is up in the subdivision more behind those houses. I can't even think of the name of the road, but it's all the, yes, that those were specifically named as the open space parcels in the PUD and so on. I couldn't find anything that specifically named this particular property as part of a density bonus. Not saying that it's not, I'm just saying I couldn't find it. And so, please, I welcome, if you've got a comment to that. But if we did find that out, that what basically, that still doesn't mean that you couldn't rezone it. What it means is that the HOA can't sell it or buy or in any other way divulge themselves of ownership of it. And if it said that it was specifically open to public use, then that's a problem. That's a problem for fencing it off and having animals in there, because it's supposed to be open for public use. Now, I don't know how much public use is going on down there right now, but I hope that the goal at the end of the day, no matter what happens here, is that we gotta get these weeds cut down.
Yeah.
And so there's gotta be some maintenance that's gotta be done down in there. But we can do some further looking into that in terms of, is it in that, is it not? What Scott and I have discussed specifically is that the plat of the subdivision specifically says that this upper parcel has to be owned in perpetuity by the HOA because of the detention basin that is there. So I have found that out, and I think that creates a problem for the HOA to divulge itself of that property because of that language. That same language does not exist on the bottom parcel. And so I think that is a problem, that upper one is a problem for them to be able to divulge of it, ownership of it. But, they could lease it. They could do some other things and I'm not trying to tell the HOA, I don't care what they do at the end of the day. But there are some restrictions on the property in terms of that.
Now, one question, and I mean, I'm sensitive to the, some of the different competing risks at play here, and then that's real. I mean, Scott, you've done a very good job of expressing that there's real concerns about, the Russian olives. My father-in-law has those, and they are a nightmare. Phragmites, these are all real concerns given the location in the city and its closeness to some of the risks, the wildfire risks. Is there a way, I mean, if for example, if we were to go a different direction, is there a way to require the HOA being like, hey, just like if someone had a lot, just like the one next to the condos, right? Whenever it gets tall weeds, you guys say, hey, you got to go cut that down. And it's done. He takes care of it pretty quickly. Is there a similar, I mean.
Yeah, pretty much the city can send a letter to the HOA and say, these weeds need to be cut down. This is, there's ordinances in the city that don't allow that to grow to that, state.
But what's the enforcement mechanism?
Darren did put together a letter, we send out a letter and say, you got 30 days to cut all this down.
Sure.
And I think that needs to happen probably anyway.
Sure.
Regardless of what else happens, but I think that just based on, my recommendation is just based on the number of public comments that this is probably something that could be further discussed with the HOA and maybe allow the city to have some additional direction from the HOA about what are they feeling about this one way or the other. Because they did request this. I mean, they
Absolutely.
officially requested
Right.
this, but it sounds like that they maybe haven't fully vetted it
Right.
with the property owner. So I don't know.
You know, for example, I mean, if there is concern about slope and in the safety of the slope and landslides, you know, maybe the HOA needs to do a study, a geotech study, and just see what would be the impact. Scott knows stuff. You know all this stuff.
You bet, the whole thing. Couple of concerns I have. I was president of this association at one time. What, is it Mr. Iverson, is that correct? His property that adjoins is the hillside. The piece that would have to be retained by the HOA is the majority of that hillside, am I correct? Because it shows at the upper end, is that correct?
This is the piece that has to be.
It's that whole piece.
Yeah, which goes up alongside his driveway there.
So that's more of the risk
So that's
area.
something that cannot be sold off, but it could be rezoned. My concern is we have two adjoining property owners who are in opposition, which they're directly affected. So any type of rezone, that's why we do public hearings, is to hear what the neighbors' desires are. And having been president of that HOA at one point, and Andy has as well, it sounds like the word hasn't got out to a sufficient level to have an opinion rendered on whether it's in the best interest of the HOA or anybody. Also having had a cabin property where we've had a rancher come in and bring sheep to clear out the fire danger and eat down the vegetation, but they're only there for a couple of months and then they're removed. So it doesn't do damage to the land. So that would be my second concern on there. Now, having said all that, Hidden Springs has all that land in back of the cove, Mirabella, all that back there. That's always been an issue back there on whether we can or cannot be in there. So my question is, at the time, the Army Corps of Engineers designated all that as wetlands, which I'm assuming this is too, which said we can't go in there and do anything. So what, per the Army Corps of Engineers, is allowable with this property to go in and do anything?
Well, that's a good question. And that's probably another thing to take a look at. I don't know how to answer that question totally right now.
Because
We should look, you know,
Yeah,
Scott.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to answer now, but it's like.
well, one more thing, Scott versus Scott here. When I was in the leadership of that, I called the Army Corps of Engineers about everything back in Mirabella, because the question was whether we could cut trees. There was a couple of owners that gone back and kind of landscaped a little bit of that, and we were told you can't do anything back there technically. So, but having said that, we do need to have fire mitigation of some sort.
That seems obvious.
Yeah.
So just some context as well. I made sure this last time, in a previous role, I was the executive director of the State's Department of Environment and Quality. So dealt with all air, land, and water issues, including lands, and the Army Corps of Engineers. You actually can, I think you've got some bad information. The Army Corps of Engineers is really hard to work with. But depending on what the project is, there's actually a great opportunity to reestablish healthy wetlands. This is, I think, a prime example of what a bad wetlands looks like. Phragmites, as I mentioned earlier, is an invasive species. And so the Army Corps, the state's forestry and fire state lands actually fund efforts with livestock to get rid of Phragmites to reestablish healthy wetlands, because the wetland, the way that it is now, is actually not a healthy wetland. There is a designation of a wetland through there. It's not the entire area. I mean, if you walk down in there, I'm probably the only one that's walked down in there, and it's pretty much all wetlands. I mean, you're stomping through stuff. And that's the challenge, I think, with trying to get any equipment down in there. It wouldn't facilitate itself to running a mower through there or something. There's ways you could do it. But you can work with the Army Corps of Engineers, particularly for a wetlands restoration. That happens all the time, and they support that because it actually is better for the environment.
And doesn't that require some interface with a representative from the Army Corps of
Yeah,
Engineers?
absolutely, for those areas that are designated wetlands, so yeah, absolutely. And to be clear as well, I don't care if it's active, right? We're trying to, I think the bigger picture, this is what I love about this conversation, there's just an issue, right? And we're just trying to figure out how to address that issue.
Well, it's very much appreciated what a common sense level approach you've had to this, so.
Well, these are my neighbors.
I also just wanted to make sure the public's aware of this, I don't plan. The way that property is currently zoned R112 does not allow any animal keeping. And so just as you have further discussions about that, understand that the way, I suspect the way that it got zoned as, is that's the way the whole subdivision is zoned. Everything else is zoned R112, but just know that moving forward is that does not allow animal keeping. And so Mr. Baird proposed, to go that direction, that, help mitigate with some farm animals. We can't do that unless we rezone the property. So, I just think that's helpful for everybody to know, as you have, more discussions about it.
I mean, I'm having, this is challenging because I see the different sides and I think, Scott, you've presented some really good positive potential solutions. I see the different sides of the scenario, and I really wish that the HOA wasn't just hiding behind you. I wish they would come and engage as part of this process. Because they ultimately need to be answerable to their, and I know there's been some discussions, but it almost feels like they're foisting the solution on you when they need to have figured out the solution and engaged with it as well. But this is a hard one for me. Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I think we need to understand the bonus density, right? If there's not an, well, I guess really there's two things. Really, we're talking about rezone. The sale is, I would say, has nothing to do with the conversation technically. But I am, I guess, sympathetic to the neighbors that are right next door. And then an expectation that they had for the land, when they purchased property and what they anticipated, it would be used at. I personally don't think it would be horrible to have goats or sheep or anything back there. But I also don't live right there. And so I recognize that and I understand that. I don't know about the land, movement. I don't know how that would, potentially, and I don't know the responsibility, I guess, of, I assume the landowner would have the responsibility to make sure it does not, come down and impede somebody else's property. But I understand the concern, I guess. But
you just made another point here. I have several concerns, and number one is the primary requester of this zone change. We don't have a representative here from the HOA, the president or the board or anybody else to defend what their position is on this. And I believe Mr. Iverson pointed out that what maps designate that hillside as high risk for potential mudslides or movement if there was not vegetation. Coming from other development in the community that has been designated as non-disturbance area to keep vegetation, and it's completely forbidden to remove vegetation to maintain the integrity of the hillside. So I have several concerns about that.
One question, the RS12 zone allows for limited farm.
Yeah. No.
What's the difference there?
This
Just
is
curious.
R112.
I know, I'm saying,
RS12.
if you were to
does not
recommend, and what's the difference? Obviously, ag, you have a pretty high limit.
The only difference between, it's the same, everything's the same between the two, both minimum quarter-acre lots. The only difference is RS12 allows you to keep some farm animals. And it's based on a point system, how much acreage you have and things of that nature. So you could have a horse or a cow or some chickens or a goat in an RS-12, excuse me, but not in an R-112. And I can tell you how R-112 is a recent phenomenon. I mean, in the last 10 years, where we had subdividers coming in, developers coming in saying, listen, we don't want to perpetuate any animal keeping in this subdivision, so we want a zoning designation that doesn't have that.
Right.
That's not what we're trying to, it's not what we're about. So that's kind of how it came about. That's really the only difference between those two zones.
But practically speaking, like if you know, for example, people, because Scott's not going to do this, but let's say Scott sells his property and you have someone who wants to, I don't know, just have a bunch of animals, like just a ridiculous. Right, so something crazy, right? Let's go to the crazy extreme end of, you know, what could happen. Right, is there a practical difference if we were to say, hey, ag might not work, but come back to us with RS-12, because then you're limiting some of the concerns that Chris talked about. But I don't want this to be, you know, Hee-Haw's farm, right?
There are some uses in the A1 that wouldn't be available in the RS-12. And we can go back and identify exactly what those are. But in terms of like the number of animals that could be kept, there wouldn't be a difference in the two zones because it's based on how much acreage you have.
Sure.
You know, so it's a point system. And like every horse is 20 points
Sure.
and so
And based on the
he's got,
size here.
you know, he's got 2.5 acres there, so you could have 2.5 acres worth of animals.
So my attempt at Solomon fell very far short. As you can tell, my wisdom is not quite there. Yeah, Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the other differences between the RS-12 and the ag is you can have more lots with the RS-12, which is actually the concern of ours, which is why we would do the ag, because that limits the number of lots you have to at least have 2 acres to be zoned agricultural.
Sure.
So that would maintain that open space, which is kind of our way here. I think one of the other ideas here, though, and I just appreciate all this, again, this, if we table the recommended comments, HOA, I guess, but it doesn't hurt our feelings in any way. But I do know you can put easements as well on properties to restrict. So, for example, we would never want to put fencing or animals on the hillside. Right? We're on a hill as well. We like more vegetation to stabilize that. But that could be something with the HOA that could limit, right, certain areas by putting an easement on there that restricts certain actions. And again, this may or may not go that direction, but if it did get zoned agriculture, we would do whatever to make people comfortable, to not take down trees. We want more trees than less trees. I'd rather have trees than Phragmites. So
Yeah.
there are those options. I know that's the sale piece instead of this ag zoning, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel in common with you guys that there's more discussion that can be had here, and this has been very positive and very helpful. And you know, personally, you know, to the extent we could have representatives of the HOA come next meeting and continue this conversation, while in between the meetings, they get their team, the HOA, together to discuss what are solutions, because a solution is needed here. There's definitely a solution needed, but one that can navigate the different concerns in a way that's a little more cohesive.
Maybe just to speak on behalf of the HOA, even though I'm not the HOA. I've gotten updates from the HOA as they've gone and had a meeting, which I'm thrilled, right? They're giving feedback. Really good
So
thought.
you got the HOA's contact.
So they have, per the request of members of the HOA, are going out and getting bids now for what it would cost to cut that all down, what it would cost to put a road in. So I think to your point, it may be that this conversation just isn't quite right yet.
I think that's
That might be additional information once we
Yeah.
have from the HOA, so yeah, it's gonna be $100,000 to put a road
Sure.
in. Or whatever, if they had as part of their plan, you know, that there would be restrictions if there was a sale or whatever, I don't know. I think there's probably more to be done there. If at all, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be zoned agriculture at all, right? If people like I just don't like frag lines.
Yeah.
Something that's
yeah.
better
I-
than frag lines to give her that fireplace, but I.
Yeah,
it's
right.
not
I think there's a fire, there's a concern about fire. There's a concern about hillside movement.
Yeah.
There's a concern about open space corridor. I think, right,
Wildlife.
yeah, clearly, like, there's something that should be done. And my suggestion, I think the city, we need to clarify on this bonus density situation. But I think there's probably some solution that can be figured out amongst the group. I don't think it's gonna happen here tonight. And so my suggestion is we table at this point. And
I'm in agreement. I don't think like a approve or deny, but just
Yeah.
a table for more development of information. And encourage those of you here from the HOA to reach out to the board and make sure, we're all very interested in a way to resolve the real concerns about wildfire risk, but as well about the other concerns you guys have raised. And I really appreciate the good faith efforts of everyone here. This has been very important in my book. So I'll entertain a motion of, I guess, to table. That's what everyone wants to go forward with.
you good with that, Scott?
For further discussion, and I would second that.
So I'll make that motion to table.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 And I think it'll be helpful. Heidi, I believe, used to be or is in the HOA. So it may be helpful to be a time where she can contribute as well. And Scott, I think it's great to have your background on it too.
Could we request, though, whoever the president, somebody to represent the HOA at the next time this comes up?
Yeah. Do you mind, Scott, contacting them? We'd love to have someone there just to, again, I think it's a little bit unfair to you that you have to both represent, the efforts you're already making. You're paying a lot to get this process, and then kind of have to be the attorney in fact for the HOA's hard.
Well, and sadly, we care about it more than anybody because nobody else is on. I think Jed and I are probably the highest at risk for that fire.
Sure.
So I care passionately about it. I get why nobody else does, why the HOA doesn't, but yeah, we'll absolutely coordinate it. I know the HOA manager, Tracy, has been involved in this and she can come, so I'm sure we can do something. I'll share this feedback.
And given that, if we could please put this on next month as well, just because I don't want to push it far off, because your concerns are real, they're valid concerns. So thank you everyone who was involved in that. We already closed that public hearing, so I can just move on to the new public hearing, right? We're just cruising here today. So speaking of wildfire risk, our next public hearing is about Title 10, Chapter 10C, the wildlife or wildland urban interface, and this is coming to us from the state. Yeah, he
made the
moved, he
motion.
seconded,
Yeah.
and then unanimous of the three of us. Thank you for checking me, because sometimes my meetings go a little off the rails here.
So, the next item up is the WUI ordinance with the WUI map. This is a requirement for state for wildland urban interface, wildfire and building codes. The state has this year finally got something a little closer to work with. There's a few laws that they added to and changed some things, and with the new requirements, we're able to go in and use the map they have and outline the boundary for the WUI. It actually is pretty interesting because the majority is what they give you is the area number 5. And anywhere in that area number 5, you can create your boundary. And so we went through and looked at that whole area number 5 throughout the whole city. And it is actually just right along pretty much the city boundary. So as we went through and got all the information that we could, we took all that information, we took it up. I had our GIS, our engineer go through and map it all out and make sure we're within that correct area. I also sent it down to Farmington Fire and I had the fire marshal for Davis County with the wildlife look at it too, to make sure that map met. And so this is the map to go on the ordinance that we were talking about. And once again, it relates to the building code requirements in that area.
the new law has actually finally come out and state that cities cannot go any lower than a 5. Where before you could take it down to a 1 if you wanted, and cause those causes of building permits to increase quite a bit. But now the law states anywhere within that 5 range, you can adjust your line to go through that 5 range and meet the requirements for the map. And so this is the map that we came up. And as you see, the brighter green line is that line. It just really does follow pretty much all the building area in Peru.
So and that was going to be my question, that red box area.
So the red box is actually, even on their map, but it's interesting because the line on the state map that they have actually comes right down into that, where the mountain bike trail is. It comes right down in that area. It goes back up towards the farm and it comes back up around the houses. And so that area is actually, some of it's 6. And so we didn't want to, it's not supposed to ever be built on.
Yeah.
So we figured we would come to the bottom of that area and make sure that we could keep with that.
So that's basically just Fruit Loops right there.
Yep, it's just Fruit Loops all the way up to the property that the city owns. Also above there.
Got it. Yeah, this is a lot better than that we had initially worried about.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Like tons.
Yeah, a
Great.
lot better than what was initially forecasted. So that is what this public hearing is for you to just talk about this.
Yeah. So anyone who has any comments, questions, concerns, please approach the lectern. We'd love to hear from you. Not everyone at once. Just kidding. So it doesn't sound like we have any public comments going once, going twice. So I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing aspect of this and discuss and vote.
You want to make that?
Go ahead.
You want, I'm going to make I'll
You're
make,
the voter.
I guess
He's the
so.
seconder. That's-
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing, to discuss, Title 10, the wildland urban interface.
Second.
And I will second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
I,
So yeah, again, this is a lot better than what we had feared a couple months ago when we started talking about this, so I think that's positive. The one question I have is once we finalize this, it's the sort of thing I assume we send it to someone at the state and they have to approve it.
So it'll go through the planning commission tonight.
Yeah.
Because it is a land use to the ordinance, under the building codes. If it is approved and recommended by the planning commission at this time, it'll go to the city council to approve the ordinance that we've reviewed a couple times, and also to review that map. After that time, it will become an ordinance, and then the state will look to see if our map meets the requirements.
And what's that process, their approval process, what timelines, what are they expecting, what are the requirements, so that we make sure that we're seeing exactly
Well,
what we
I honestly think it would be more just the county fire marshal that's gonna do the review. He's already looked at it. I sent that down to them in our fire department.
I assume he gave a soft
And they
approval.
both, yeah, they're like, yeah, that is boundaries and all that kind of stuff. And that's why we progressed to bring it to, having everything done and bringing it here. We felt very comfortable.
Sure.
That they'll agree with our alignment on this. So.
That's great.
Darren, just one question. You stated there's no residential structures in the level 5 wildland fire area as far as our city is concerned. There's no structures. right?
No, but there may be homes that are in that boundary, but you can, with
The way we draw
the
that,
way we draw it, it is pretty much city boundaries, and so those homes are out.
so there,
So no one's gonna get taxed on extra.
no resident
Right.
is going to have to do that mitigation piece of this whole thing because they're not in that area.
Right, so they won't have a property tax charged
I think that's clear, good for everyone in the city to know that.
Absolutely.
Because it was pretty daunting.
Yeah.
What you were gonna have to do.
Sure.
Can I ask just clarification? So to try to understand, I went to the Division of Forestry Fire and State Lands website. I mean, I spent way too long trying to figure out figuring out the purpose and exactly what is happening, I guess. There was a presentation that the Division of Forestry and Fire and State Lands gave in November, so it could have changed, and it seems like it's been very fluid and it's changed, and so this could be incorrect, but from the presentation that I watched, it appeared that the city, so there's a WUI zone, and then what they've classified as a high-risk WUI boundary. From what I understood was that the city could adjust the WUI zone, but not the high-risk WUI boundary. And the boundary from their presentation, if a property falls within the high-risk WUI boundary, then a fee will be assessed.
Yes,
But-
and that is what they were talking about in November.
Okay,
So
so that's,
some of the adjustments in the law that they just improved
Hmm.
is where they said you can take that boundary line in that level 5. You can't go below level 5, and you can't go above level 5. In that boundary is where the city can come in and designate that zone. And
okay,
by designating it in that zone, it takes that opportunity for homes, not to be charged that property tax by the state to cover this.
I think what you're suggesting, Justin, is that, and I'm remembering this too now, is
That was a
that,
good meeting.
is that there could be privately owned properties that are still in the wildfire risk
Yes.
area, and they are going to have some kind of assessment to them, but it's not gonna be near the degree or effort as if you have a home in that area. So is that what you were
well,
saying?
kind of. So what my understanding is, so so there's a zone and a boundary.
Right.
And the boundary falls within the zone. So the zone is bigger than the boundary. The zone determines if the municipality is going to enforce the WUI code. So is a homeowner going to have to mitigate fire danger?
No, not the way they draw it.
Yeah.
No, yes, I do.
They do.
Yeah, part of this is, and if you go through the code,
They have to still do the assessment?
no.
You said-
But they still need to mitigate, and that's part of the ordinance. Of making sure you're mitigating, and it falls under the CWPP, which is the Community Wildfire Prevention Plan, which the city is part of. And this is now a section of that too. And the city's doing the education, they're doing all those different things. That's the benefit of that. But the boundary in that boundary zone also goes by 2 different calculations that the Forest Service, when they put the map together. Smooth and
Not
smooth structure. I guess I just went through all this out here. And one other factor. And so you have to use both of those as you're going through there to be able to kind of put your boundary in. So there's more to it now, the way the laws are written. And that's really, I tell you, that's part of the reason we waited.
Oh, it's
until they
yeah.
change those portions. Because I would tell you, there were places on the west side of 89 that only had houses around them, that if you clicked on their address, they were very high.
Hmm.
And there was nothing around them to justify that. And so that was part of the changing of the different categories of that area number 5, or whatever you want to say. So yes, the homes that are on this side of that boundary do not have to meet those building codes. But they're not supposed to now receive that property tax for the mitigation.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand, by us adjusting the lines, and from what I saw online, it was basically the west, it was the farthest east road for the most part was our boundary line. Anything on the east side of the road was classified as in the high risk WUI boundary.
So I've looked at the map a bunch of times, if you look at how they have their map with that level 5, it's like this. It kind of comes up, and it kind of comes across here a little bit, and then very, very, like the back half of these properties would have maybe been in that level 5.
Yep.
But the home is not.
Yeah.
And so being able to go along the city boundary, which we did here, it's called the city boundary. We were able to go along the back of the properties and take them out of that portion of that mitigation problem.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify, I guess, make sure I understand correctly. By adjusting the line, we do not believe that homeowners will be required to that the specific building codes in that area won't apply, and they will not be assessed a fee.
Right.
And
that's the change on the law
That's the
that they
big,
just did.
Yeah.
that's the big piece.
okay,
Yeah.
and they won't have the required mitigation.
That's what you're saying. They still-
Look, I will tell you, those houses along there now, they have landscape requirement because they're sensitive land. And part of that requirement for their landscaping is the things they're planting, the things they're doing in their yard. Part of that is a fire risk, and that's part of that sensitive land ordinance that the city approved years ago, as far as landscaping and those kind of things. So as far as that, those homes already are required to do that.
It's gonna be status quo for
Yes.
I think the best way to put that, Justin, to answer your question, is to say, those homeowners are not gonna have some guy from the state fire come in and say, you're gonna cut down all these trees or else.
Yeah.
But what Darren is saying is that our involvement as a city in the CWPP includes fire-wise smart planning, where you look at your property and say, what can I do to reduce my risk?
Yep.
So those things we still are responsible to do, but you're not gonna have somebody telling you, if you don't cut down these 10 trees, you're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's the best way.
And this year on our CWPP report, we have to actually show that we had adopted or doing the movie.
Yeah.
Or we will not qualify.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good.
And you don't wanna not qualify.
Yeah. It's like a little bit of an insurance.
Sure. So isn't there a set amount of years that this will stand and then it gets reevaluated on that line?
I don't know that one. Honestly, I don't know if they added
Because
that.
I thought I read somewhere in there that it stands for X amount of years and then it will be reevaluated.
The property tax one that was first coming on there, and it still is, that if you were charged that property tax, it's 2 years before you can have that, somebody come in and look at it and have it either reduced or taken away. But I will tell you the bad thing, the way that the state has that written, is if you did everything to your yard to prevent it, and your neighbor is within 50 feet of your yard and they haven't, none of your efforts would have counted.
It's a big deal to get residences out of this.
No, it did,
Out of harm.
because it said any other structure had to be with, more than 50 feet, which every house in every neighborhood is closer than 50 feet.
Yes, it is.
But to give you a little bit more insight on this, where this is going to be helpful to the residents for us to have that line above there, where my home is, insurance companies now are requiring live inspections, videos of your yard, your surrounding area, and then they will automatically send you, no matter what, a private company to come and try to teach you how to mitigate. And word on the street from insurance brokers says, don't sign up for any of those. Because it's an admission that you have a problem when there really isn't a problem.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I just had that happen to me, denied it, so.
Any more questions?
No, this has been very helpful. So yeah, I think this is a positive to send forward to the planning, or not, to the city council and then to the state and see what they say.
I mean, we're required. We don't have a choice, right? The state's requiring us to adopt
Yeah.
the WUI code. It's just really, it's the line. That's what we're talking about is,
Yeah, and, I mean, it was supposed to be done January 1st.
Yeah.
This year. But I will tell you pretty much, all the cities along Davis County on the bench have been waiting till this law was signed in and before they're finishing up.
Somewhere in the world.
And-
someone
and
is
it was-
celebrating New Year's.
it was-
so we can count it.
yeah, it was just recently signed from what, I mean, and it's,
Yeah, just barely, it just passed, like a week and a half ago.
yeah, March 19th, I think. Yeah, it's clear as mud when you go and try to figure out what it's all about. We need a motion.
Okay, guide me here.
I move to adopt, right? or
I
adopt
move to recommend that the city council, the ordinance.
Okay, I would make a motion to recommend to the city council Title 10, Chapter 10, See the Wildland Urban Interface map as redesigned and presented, move forward as city ordinance to the city council.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. We already closed that public hearing. So we have no planning commission business. We've discussed most of these except for that lot split. Any news on the lot split?
We bring it up.
Okay.
David, bring up that plat. Blow that up a little bit as much as you can so that it's somewhat. So this is over on Gold Spur Lane. That's good, Haley. This is essentially a 3-lot subdivision. 2 new building lots on the east end. They're just over 14,000 square feet each. And then another 1.5 acres that has an existing home on it. So he just took that whole piece right there and divided it, creating 2 new building lots, and then his home is gonna still occupy the rest of it. There's still an opportunity that they could go down on Country Lane and maybe put another lot at some point in the future. There's enough room there to do it on Country Lane in that northwest corner. But they didn't want to do that now. We suggested that they didn't want to go there yet.
Yeah.
So this is really straightforward. The lot sizes need to be a minimum of 12,000. They're over 14. They have access to all the utilities right there in the road. There's already utilities stubbed in, water, sewer. And so this is really ready to go. just wanted to just remind the planning commission on process now, because we don't do subdivision very often, but the way we've set up our city code and our ordinance now is that we will bring, preliminary plat approvals to the planning commission, and then final plats are approved by staff. The law no longer allows the city council to approve subdivisions. And so I just always like to remind you that that's the process we have to follow now. So this is in a final plat format, but technically you're looking at a preliminary approval.
When will this come before us and ready for us to?
It's ready. It's
This
ready
is it.
now.
This is it.
Oh, we don't have a public.
Yeah.
A couple of comments. I thought there was going to be some comments about this.
Okay.
We'll just extend number two to.
It's not a public hearing, but
No, it's just, yeah, we'll count it. Go for it, please.
I'm Dave Moran, we live on 1196 East Bella Vista. You can just see the last third of our yard up there. Currently, there's two houses that have been built on Goldsboro that butt up against the Bella Vista properties. The first one that went in didn't really take in much account for the effect it would have on the neighbors' properties. They utilized every square foot of the property to build all the buildings. The second home that went in affected us. We put up a 10-foot vinyl wall whether we wanted it or not. However, they were willing to work with us. They did put in some trees to try to help us preserve our privacy. If you know the Gold Spur area, you know there's some absolutely just beautiful, magnificent homes over there. It's phenomenal. And it's good for the neighborhood, I get all that. The concern that we have is the setback of the building's structures to our fence line. It's tight. The first property that went in is very tight. And we would encourage the setback to be something much larger than that. Also, the concern is by splitting this lot, now we're going to have two homes there, filling up every square foot of the lot, whereas if it was just one lot and one home, there would be more room to have the normal space and setback around the property, because those homes over there, they're huge. And I doubt anybody's going to build a two-bath house over here. They're going to be as much larger as they can possibly build. That's the whole neighborhood is that way. So that's our concern about this is let's not build on top of this. Questions?
No, I appreciate you sharing your concern. Yeah. And then the lots you're talking about that have already been built out, that's the ones.
To the east.
To the east of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, the guy that built behind us, we communicated with him, he was willing to work with us. He did what he could to minimize our impact.
Sure.
And I think, to be a good neighbor, I think that's just the way it should be.
Sure.
What is the frontage on these lots, Jeff? Is that 100 feet?
100 feet.
And when I was by there the other day, the house that's on the bigger parcel there, their driveway comes up. It looked like their driveway come and clip the corner of that second lot there. Is that correct? Or does that lot start at the very end of his driveway?
It's like right on that edge.
Right on the edge there.
So I will tell you, it's a little bit of history subdivision. When the Bushers sold, this property to, I want to say it was Fisher Homes back then. They went through, or Jack Fisher Homes, part of the agreement with the Busher, who owns that big property, was, hey, I'm gonna need some lots in the future. You put it all in and we'll flat it out, so this is how those lots really happen. And he's to that age now, I think he needs to sell them, and that was the reasoning for him to process of finally adding those lots, and I believe there is somebody who's already provided one. I do believe.
One thing that we can do as a city is we can mandate a fence on the perimeter of the property between those back neighbors. I don't know what's there now. Is there a fence there now?
Yeah.
Fence,
Is it a vinyl fence?
yeah,
Yes.
and except on the far east of ours, there's a 10-foot fence that's fine. And I didn't know that a 10-foot fence was legal, but
It's not.
It's not.
It's not.
well, and then and not only is it a 10-foot fence, then we also have like an 18-inch bow strip. So it's tall. And I think for us, the bigger problem is if this is gonna redo the plat. Because that's basically what you have to do here, right, is to develop this subdivision.
Yes.
Decide it, that having, and by the way, we love our neighbors, we love both of those homes, we love the people in there. But we've heard from the people that are abutting to them, that they lost value when they sold their homes. Because they had these big buildings that are right on the very edge of their property, it's literally, if it's 8 feet, I would be surprised, and it's a really big building. And that was a negative, and then the sound, because one of them is a sports court, that they have the sports court all the time, even into the night, and I guess they make complaints, even for noise ordinances.
Your issue is not the home itself, it's the accessory structures in the backyard
We
that
just
are.
want to have something that makes it reasonable, so that we don't have this 2-story building.
Yeah,
5 feet from
we're-
our fence. We appreciate, we knew there would be building there, that's not our problem.
we're well aware of your neighbor up on the corner.
Yeah.
We've heard from multiple residents about him filling up his lot, yeah.
And
Yeah,
we did that
I know.
with the fence.
So I think that's their question is, what, under this subdivision ordinance, how close to that back prop line can they put a
An
detached building?
accessory building.
Yes.
It's depending on
Depends on what it
what it
is.
is, but it's. The eve of the building, so this is gonna be R112. I believe it's, the eve of the building has to be 3 feet off the property line for a shed.
It needs to be at least 3 feet.
So imagine that, 2-story sports court, 3 feet from your fence line at midnight with every all.
I wouldn't be happy about that.
I'm just saying, that's an uncomfortable
Well,
place to be,
I would be
right?
happy about that.
And we recently did address lighting and sound for this very purpose because of the recent building of all the
And
different
even
sport
how much
courts.
stuff you could put in your backyard. We
Yeah,
addressed
that's
that
true.
too.
Yeah, that's been within the past couple months, so that hopefully will help address some of the sound, noise, light issues on these things, and what they can throw onto the backyard.
There should be some open space in your backyard.
Well, let me complicate this just a little bit more. If you've read in Salt Lake City what they're doing because of the cost of housing and ADUs and all that kind of thing, that they're changing their ordinance to where they can allow, as long as they have parking, to have accessory buildings put up and crowd their backyards to create housing. So that's the direction everybody is trying to push for. So it's a complicated scenario, what we're looking at here. I know exactly your situation that you're talking about there, and I wouldn't love that either. But typically, if you're building the house there, there's going to be a minimum backyard, which is usually about 20 feet.
There's a 25-foot rear setback for the house. So the house can't be more than 25 feet to your property.
But not big, not like.
But if they have a shed
sports
or
yeah.
a toy garage or something like that, is there something that they can put in? Are they going to create CC&Rs for this 2-lot subdivision?
I don't know if there's CC&Rs on the subdivision now. This will be a separate subdivision. I don't know the answer to that. I suspect, well, I just don't know.
I think there's.
I think
isn't there a
they'll end
monument?
up matching whatever the rest of the subdivision already
Isn't there a
is.
monument, I think, on that street? I
Yes.
think- Yeah,
I think it'll match what the rest of the subdivision
Yeah.
is. And I think that's kind of what was done when the subdivision was
Some of that
built.
Orchard subdivision, some of it's Goldsboro subdivision, so you might have to remind them that we've got 2 different subdivisions there already.
Yeah, yeah. I assume that Gold Spur is all on one, but I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the case or not.
Couple of lots in Goldsboro, and then there's some down here in the Orchard, and then on the other side of the street, that's Orchard, but not all.
At the same time, though, I could see butchers not wanting, basically at the time saying, I don't want to be a part of that. So. When I look at Google Maps of, the site, really, I just see, right, we're all aware of, I think, this structure on the corner that's pretty big. And then you've got what I assume is a pool house here and a shed. But the setback here from the back line looks to be consistent here. And then here it's just these 3 structures that sit close to that line.
And those are detached structures from the main residence there.
Correct. So.
The issue to me that comes into play is, a property owner's rights on what they can and can't do with their property, whether we all are in agreement or not.
Yeah.
So it's really going to come down to a city ordinance, what is allowable within the ordinance and within the subdivision plat where the, Fruit Heights City has 10-foot side yards. And if we have a 25-foot back setback on there, I think it comes down to if we do accessory units, whether it's a shed or pool house or guest house or whatever you want to do it. If we change it for 2 lots that the rest of the city has, we're not being consistent.
I agree.
Yeah, we have to.
We have to abide by our current ordinances.
Yes, whatever the current ordinance says.
I mean, currently R112 it's 3 feet. I'm reading it right here. It's 3 feet to the side and rear property lines. But if it's over 18 feet in height to the midpoint of the building, then it's an additional 3 feet. Then it's 6 feet. And then it's an additional setback for every additional 1 foot in height. So if they keep it at 18 feet, it's 3 feet
Plus.
18 feet tall. Yep.
But the 3 feet is for the building, not the eaves. It's for the actual building. The eaves, as long as they don't hang over the property line.
No, the eaves have to be 3 feet away.
Correct.
It's in the ordinance that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was an issue that's happened I want to say, I can't remember, a few years back, where they were building 3 feet off, but then they'd have their eaves and it was running over onto the neighbor's property when it would just come off. So the ordinance was changed to say, no, the eave of the building must be 3 feet off to control that water and those kind of things coming off the buildings.
We really got an interesting just dichotomy of competing interests where people are buying smaller pieces of property because they're more affordable, but then packing them with the biggest house and everything else they can fit in there. And as a neighbor, I totally get it. You're not used to seeing a 2-story pool house up against your back property line. I mean, I totally get that. But they're saying we can't afford to spread this out on an acre property. We got to pack it in on this smaller piece of property. This is the first time this discussion has happened in this city. I mean, you look at these R18 lots right here, and there's no yard. They have filled up nearly the entire lot of the house. And I expect to see more of that.
Well,
I agree.
well, and these are 1/3 of an acre, which by any point of comparison would be considered a larger lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this 14,500 square feet, that's a huge lot these days.
I understand the property right owners that have the rights too, but the adjacent property owners should also have some rights. And then the city of Good
Agreed.
I would think that maybe we could make that a little bit more neighborly.
Don't disagree with that.
mean, that street sticks out, right? That street is above and beyond the,
Gold Spur.
yeah.
Yeah, yes.
The other streets, I live right over there as well, yeah, so. Oh, I'm not related. I'm not, yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not, but, yeah, so it is, it's a great street, and I agree, I think whoever's gonna purchase that lot, and I have no idea what they were asking for it, but they're gonna build out to match the street, right? We know that's gonna happen. I have a 2-story shed next to my side yard, you know, and I have a sport court as well in my neighbor's yard, and so I understand, or I feel like yeah, I feel sympathy as well. I also think I assume that the zoning that will be here on, you know, this north side of Gold Spur is similar or the same that's on the south side of Bella Vista.
Yep.
And so, you know, if it's good for one, it seems like it would be fair just to, you know, to zone something, to limit their ability to do something, but allow the other neighbors on the other sides, just doesn't seem right with me.
That makes sense. It just seems to be that maybe it should be reviewed in the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I think as a neighbor, I think it's good to, you know, let you all know that this was mentioned. We recently amended our code to say that you can't fill up more than 50% of your rear yard space with an impervious surface. So that's buildings, concrete, swimming pools. So there has to be some space in that backyard that lets water run into the ground. We haven't really seen that tested yet. I mean, it's brand new, so we'll see where we're going, but I think, you know, one of your concerns is height and massing. And, yeah, it can be a problem.
What do we do if we get another 10-foot fence? Can we call you?
Well, 10-foot fences are not allowed.
Yeah, they're not
so,
allowed in our ordinance.
That's what you do.
Yeah, we don't allow,
And I told you.
we don't allow anything over 6-foot fence, so.
I called the city, sorry, he's like, this is my practice. I called and I said, our neighbors should put in 10-foot fence. And I was told, yeah, we get some special permission.
There's
Not
no
me.
such thing.
That's special.
Special permission, so, man, I hate, that sounds like Pandora's box, but, we could take a look at that. I just tell you, that's not allowed.
Well, we're okay with what's there now. It's just we really don't have much backyard for the rest of our yard to have a 10-foot fence.
You can have a 6-foot fence.
We'd be okay with 6 foot, I love that. but
Because
10
people
foot
are
is-
putting in 8-foot fences now, so.
Oh, yeah. But I think, yeah, that's what you called Darren. Darren's
Yeah,
the one.
our ordinance does not allow higher than a 6-foot fence. With a little
Footer.
rock wall or whatever they built, and it's on top of
It's
that.
not like this, you know, for their monster, it's quite.
And they built a retaining wall with fence
Yes.
on top of it.
Not with monster, that's what
Well, it's
I'll say.
It's a tall monster.
Yes, very tall.
Lane, go look at the most strip. Yeah.
Build a rock wall on the back of it.
Rock climb up it.
No, that's not a bad idea. My grandson
I'll just tell you, there is some language in there about that if you're retaining your property, that you can have some kind of retaining fence on top of it. We'll take a look at it, but, I totally get it.
I don't think they maybe tear down what's there now, we're not asking.
We're not worried about what's there now,
Hmm.
but the future.
You don't wanna see more, you don't wanna see more.
I mean, yeah.
We show some self-control.
Yes. No.
So maybe keep an eye on that, that would be helpful. So I understand what you're saying about it, it's allowed, so if we want to fill in our pool, the three-story sports court, well, we can't. So we can do that, maybe that's.
Little roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for letting us know.
Those discussions are valuable.
Love it. Yeah. Thanks.
sure.
Thanks for coming.
No, everyone, this has been a great meeting just because I think there's been a lot of good faith, got positive things for us to think about, implications, unintended consequences of certain things we're trying to accomplish. This is all helpful. All right, I guess at this point, we don't need any particular feedback from us on this.
We need to approve.
A recommendation to,
Move forward, for the staff to move forward.
I'd say recommendation, approve the preliminary plat for the, what's the name of the subdivision?
Gold Spur Sub Orchards at Country Lane.
Yeah, preliminary plat approval, and then that goes to staff, and just so everybody knows who that is, that's me, Darren, Lane, city engineer, city attorney. That's the.
Motley crew.
Yeah, yeah, we didn't ask for that responsibility. I liked it when the city council approved it.
Well, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to, for preliminary plat approval for the lot split at 1167 East Goldspur subdivision orchard at Country Lane.
And I would second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
But, yeah, definitely, let's keep an eye on crazy fences and structures. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
Fortunately, we
Appreciate
have
it.
made some of those changes recently that hopefully will help mitigate
Yes,
against
some of
these
this.
concerns. Okay, any tabled items or other reports? Okay, so, upcoming next meeting is on the 28th. Is that impacted at all? I know we've had some moving parts. Is that one we meeting?
And what, sorry?
April 28th is what we have planned for the next meeting. Is that going to be
Yeah,
impacted?
nope,
by
I
the-
think that one's fine.
Okay. With that, I think we're ready to close, and I'll again entertain a motion on that.
Make a motion to close the meeting.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.